and also the ability to use tourism taxes in support of workforce housing opportunities. Obviously, the raising the cap on the low-income housing tax credits is also a critical necessary tool for our state. We want to encourage public-private partnership. I've seen each one of you say yes to those sorts of deals over the last years, and that needs to be at the forefront of how we're going to grow our multifamily and especially attainable rental units around the county. So without a decent annual cap on the credits, we're shrinking the number of units that are possible. And we each know of deals that were essentially turned down or short shrifted this past year as the state changed the formula for how they're devising their South Carolina tax credits. So I'm very encouraged that the council is going to send strong resolutions to our state delegation. I intend to speak to my representatives, and if there's any help that I can be in getting to this finish line, please just let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackson. Happy New Year to you. Okay, we're moving right on.
Same to y'all.
All righty, we're moving right on to item number B. It's the approval of the minutes. I have a
So move.
Second.
There's moving second. All vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposes?
I also just wanted to remind us that we had one public comment from Anthony Bryant that I forwarded to the council earlier.
Yes, I did read it.
Okay.
So it's a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah, not, yeah. So we'll acknowledge that we have the information coming from Mr. Bryan. Thank you very much.
No problem. Just wanted to remind you.
All righty. So all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Now, under old business, we have no old business. So we move right on down to number D, which is new business. The new business, the first thing we have an ordinance to amend Article 2, Land Use Regulation, Part 2, Permitted Use of by Base Zoning District, Section 54-207, P for Chapter 54 of the Code of the City of Charleston, zoning ordinance to extend conditional use provision to allow an increased number of affordable housing units on larger lots. Do we have anyone have any questions or any need to have any further explanation about that?
Chairperson Mitchell, either our planning director, Mr. Summerfield,
Yeah.
going to be covering that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so obviously I'm available for any questions, and I think our senior planner, Chloe Stuber, as well as Christopher on the line as well, who worked more closely with this. But essentially, this is an amendment to address allowing for an increased number of units by allowing for some different lot sizes, particularly larger lot sizes, to have more bedrooms, more affordable units, addressing some stuff, some fine print regarding, I think there's something in there about addressing the lot occupancy calculations and setback requirements as it addresses something with compliance with the accessibility regulations. But essentially, this is, again, just another attempt to loosen the zoning regulations a little bit, not going crazy, just so that we can have opportunity to be more accommodating for getting more affordable units. And again, I don't know if Ms. Stuber or Mr. Morgan have anything else to add to that.
I'll just add that the conditional provisions this is an expansion of existing conditional provisions in the zoning ordinance that have worked really well. There are some instances now where these same provisions could assist with some larger lot properties, and the ordinance wasn't written for that originally. So it's just expanding to accommodate that.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? No questions? Could we have
I think Caroline had her hand up.
Councilwoman Parker, Councilmember Mitchell has her hand up.
I'm sorry, but I didn't see her on the screen. Councilmember Parker, yes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have two questions. So, I mean, obviously, this is sort of a standard move to create more. It just seems like, I mean, I think it's, what does this say? Total number of bedrooms on the lot shall not exceed 12, and now we're going to 22. Is that standard or that, I mean, it seems like a lot, but again, affordable housing this isn't really my realm. So if someone can just break that down for me. And then my second question, I've asked this at a previous meeting, but so can you give me an idea, because I don't think it was 120% when I asked the last time. So can you give me an example, Ms. Johnson, of what is that going to look like today? The households earning no more than 120% of the area median income.
Well, you want to take the first question and then I'll address area median income for?
Sure. Yeah. So the 22 bedrooms is only allowed for a certain lot size. So you're seeing that increase in number because we're basically accommodating larger lots. So this would only apply to fairly small lots previously. But that ratio of bedrooms to lot size is pretty consistent. Lee Batchelder, our zoning administrator, would be able to say more about how he calculated that. But the ratio of bedrooms to lot area isn't really changing across that. We're just accommodating larger lots to be able to utilize this ordinance. So hopefully that answers your first question.
Yes.
Because regardless of the size of the lot prior, it would only be what, 12?
12.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
And Councilwoman Parker, for the purposes of understanding the area median income at 120% of AMI, and I guess we should start with where the area median income is. If you looked at 100% with a household of 4, which is your average, you're looking at a household annual income of $91,800. So if you're talking someone at 120% of the area median income, that's $110,160 in annual income. And I'm glad to share this chart for 2022-23 with you.
Which would also be applicable to a family of 4, right?
Correct.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, one last question about the the parking units, the parking spots.
Okay.
The 1 parking space for each 4 dwelling units. I mean, I just wonder where do we have specific lots that you're focusing on, especially with this ordinance? You know, is that why this came about? Or I'm just wondering where's the additional parking?
So if you, in that table, you're going to see that there are specific zoning designations where this is applicable. So this would be our DR1, DR1F, LB, L1, DR2, DR2F, and GB zones only. So this is limited to just those zoning districts. And Chloe can maybe provide a little bit more context of where we generally see those zoning districts. But again, in affordable housing, we typically, because parking can be an extremely expensive sunk cost for housing development, we generally try to be as lenient on a parking standard as possible. Obviously, a developer, though, is going to know who they're going to be selling or renting to. And so they should build, if they feel like they need more parking, then they should be prepared to accommodate that additional parking. The standard, though, gives the maximum amount of flexibility to accommodate that. And then, as you know, council member, Charleston is known for the ability for folks to park in the neighborhood and not necessarily always park on their lot. So again, that maximum flexibility to the extent we can here to try to incentivize additional affordable housing.
Okay, thank you. And again, to my downtown council members, I mean, that's appropriate.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's appropriate. Okay.
Could you do me a favor? Could you sort of just define DR2, DR2F, and GB.
Somerville, I think you're on mute. Okay.
I'm sorry, Councilman. Yeah, just it looks like Chloe's trying to pull up the actual classification. Basically, those are resident. They're residential, but I think they're the diverse residential. Chloe, am I
Yes.
right? So
Right.
those are the ones where you have also the wider range of unit types or housing types that you could have within those categories versus your straight single family residential zone.
And that's why GB is included.
Correct, because we do have that residential allowance in GB.
And council member, they are our densest residential categories other than the MU workforce housing.
Right.
I understand.
6.4 units an acre.
Okay. I understand the distinction. I just want to put it out there. Okay.
Any other questions? Make sure I don't miss anyone.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, it was moving second. All vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Ayes have it. So that's been approved. So we'll move on down to, let me write this down here. Move on down to number 2. It's a resolution by the City of Charleston Council calling on the South Carolina Legislative Delegation to amend Section 12-6-3795 B5B of the South Carolina Code of Law so as to increase the annual South Carolina housing tax credit from $20 million annually to $40 million annually.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilmember Mitchell and members of the City Committee. So this resolution is requesting that the legislator increase the amount of low-income housing tax credits that are available in the state of South Carolina to those developing affordable housing. As you all may recall, we put a resolution forth earlier this year requesting that state housing and the governor's office amend certain components of the qualified allocation plan, which is the plan that governs how tax credits are used. This is simply asking the state legislator to increase the availability of low-income housing tax credits in our community. As you all may recall, the state housing tax credits enable and have enabled more than 50,000 units to be constructed in our community. And literally this serves persons who earn as little as 30% of the area median income. And when you are in certain brackets up to 80%, when you're utilizing the income averaging formula. And quite honestly, it is just as it is right now, it is not enough. Many of the projects that you all have supported in council that have been provided bond funds or federal funds who are requesting funds from state housing, their projects are in limbo and/or they're having to seek alternative funding sources in order to make their projects viable. And literally, it's time for the state legislator to really take a look at how impactful housing is to the economy and how important it is for us to attract industry and ensure that our residents have proper housing. And so we're asking your support of this because the cost of housing has gone up and we need housing in our community. Thank you.
Yes, we do. This was something we were talking about for years. And I think I'm happy to see that we're going to send something to the state asking them to do something about it. Do anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Mr.
Member
Chairman.
Saccharin has his hands up.
Okay, let me get Councilman Saccharin, Councilman Gregory, and I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I certainly support any effort to try to bring Gianna and her team and the city more money. And the reason I mention this is I'm certainly supportive of this, but when you think about our conversation at last council regarding our lobbyists and what they do, this to me is a very clear portfolio of work for them.
Yes.
I'm certainly not going up to Columbia to make the pitch. And I don't think any of us council members are. I think there's a discussion we can have next council meeting regarding that work and the return on investment. I think it's a worthy discussion. But I would say this, if this change could be enacted through our lobbyists and the advocacy work on behalf of the city, that money that we pay those lobbyists is well worth it. So thank you for those time to make that comment, Councilman Mitchell.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Mitchell, and I'll just add, our lobbyists have been critical for us in this realm. Meeting with key legislators in South Carolina on some of the projects and concerns that we've had, they have been literally at the table, helping us facilitate conversations and movement relative to this need.
Thank you very much for that response. Councilman Gregory and then Councilman Parker afterwards. Councilman Parker.
And if I might add, calls to our legislative representatives is also very crucial. For instance, Senator Kempson. We all need to reach out to him and the other senators or representatives that are representing this. So in addition to our lobbyists, I do think that as council members, we also have a responsibility to talk to Leon and to talk to all of our senators to let them know that, as a council, we're fully supporting it. And I think it also helps them as they argue on our behalf.
I totally agree.
My question, though, my original question was to Gianna. Didn't we also have some other critical issues with the allocation plan, which restricted allocations regionally? And as a result of that, it sort of hindered our ability to compete for the tax credits?
Yes, sir. Most recently, the resolution that we sent up to Columbia was in response to two matters related or outlined in the QAP. One was they did not want to fund projects that were within a mile of another project or a project that had been funded in the previous year. And so we asked them to strike that simply because of the work that we've been doing in what I call our urban core. If that rule had been in place, say last year, James Lewis Jr. Apartments could not receive funding because Archer would have received funding. So any development within a mile of each other in this more recent QAP could not be within a mile of each other. And so we did ask them to strike that. We also asked them to strike the language relative to any properties considered brownfields being utilized as sites for affordable housing. We know that there is technology and industry standards that allow us to literally utilize what we would consider brownfields properties for affordable housing if they are constructed in a particular way. And so because we felt that those two items in particular were restrictive to urban development, we asked them to remove those.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I move for approval.
Councilmember Mitchell, I think.
Chairman Mitchell, you're on mute.
All right, it's Councilwoman Parker. I know you had your hands up. I'm sorry, but I put it on mute because I had a phone ringing.
And Councilmember Appel after her.
Okay, will do.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. I know Amy's not on this call, but I'm sure Ms. Johnson, maybe you can answer this question. So currently the $20 million worth of tax credits, we get those 20 million as the city of Charleston as our municipality, or it's spread throughout the state?
It's spread throughout the state.
Okay. So what do we receive right now? Do you know?
So it is a competitive process, and it varies based on every project or on the projects that are submitted. But I would say every low-line affordable housing project, I think the overall development cost there was around 22 million. Probably about 10 million of that, 8 to 10 million of that was from tax credit financing. And so it plays a large part in the developments that we want to see in Charleston. I can certainly bring to council the allocation for each of the more recent projects. Next week, I could have that for you. But again, that low-income housing tax credit, which is essentially an exchange for actual cash being donated or invested in a project, is critical to literally every bond project that the city of Charleston has funded over the last several years.
Okay. And then again, just like we would do with our budget, I mean, we're just asking the legislature to, you know, rework their budget and find another 20 million for affordable housing in the state.
That's
No,
correct.
no.
Who's that? Oh, Councilman Appel, I was hearing something.
Thank you.
It was Carol.
Thank
It's
you, Mr.
Carol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was going to just point that out, that we're not talking about $20 million coming to the city of Charleston.
No.
Raised to $40 million. Good Lord. I mean, Gianna, could you even imagine what you'd be doing with yourself? I mean,
I wish we could.
Oh, that'd be crazy. Whoa. This is going from 20 to $40 million in the state.
Wait.
I mean, so this ain't that much. 40 is not even that much, to be honest with you. And but so just to kind of put that in perspective, and you know, the shorthand explanation for what this money does in its role is, you know, affordable housing is not economical most of the time to developers. This is the money that fills that gap to make these deals pencil, and it's that secret sauce to make these deals work. So that's what this money is used for. But you know, we're talking about politics now. We're talking about asking the General Assembly to do something. I just want to provide a little bit of context to this and kind of what's going on up in Columbia. I am involved right now in litigation throughout the state of South Carolina and other governments where projects, low-income housing tax credit projects, were met with violent political negative reactions across the state. And there's now a growing sense that this program is why these projects are able to happen. That's why there's a lot of scrutiny in Columbia over this and things of that nature. So, you know, if some other counties around the state don't want to do this, or they don't want to get involved in, you know, affordable housing, that's for them to decide. But I think as this agenda makes clear, the city of Charleston has a policy supportive of affordable housing. We want to get it however we can do it. And so if certain parts of the state don't want it, we're happy to take a bigger piece of the pizza. We need affordable housing in this area. It's important for our economy. It's important for all kinds of other reasons. And so, but I just want to give everybody a little bit of background as to why this is politically contentious in Columbia. And we need to all be, you know, eyes open as we engage in this. And, you know, we have jurisdictions not very far from the city of Charleston that are absolutely inimical to affordable housing in any stretch of the imagination. And I'm sitting in one of them right now, if you know where my office is. So the city of Charleston needs to lead the way on this. We are leading the way on this. And this is just one of the many ways we can advance the ball on this extremely important issue. And I can't agree more with Councilman Gregory. We all have contacts with our state legislative delegation. We need to be talking to them. We need to be talking to our Republican delegation as well, that they're in charge in Columbia, although we've got some very influential Democrats up in the State House, Senator Kimson and Representative Stavronakis. But we need to explain how this is pro-business, because it is pro-business. We need to talk about how this helps expand opportunities for police, firefighters, things of that nature. That's the kind of messaging we need to be signaling when we have these conversations with our elected officials and our constituents, so we can build support for this important policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I totally agree. And because affordable housing is very, very important to the city of Charleston, which we need it very bad here in the city of Charleston.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might add,
Gregory,
housing is the economic engine of our economy. That's it. And I think what you're describing, Councilman Appel, is NIMBYism. Bottom line. It's existed since time immemorial.
yes, it does. All right, if anyone else have any comments, I haven't missed anyone, I guess. If not, I get a motion, please.
I move to
Second.
approve.
Okay, it was moving second. All they vote by voting aye.
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 Opposes? Ayes have it. So we'll send that up. And I agree with everyone what have been said that we need to contact our state legislative on both sides, and just tell them the seriousness of what we are trying to do here in the city of Charleston, which are needed. And also, as Councilman Sacrum stated, we will always contact our lobbyists, and we're still doing a good job up there since I've been on here. So we'll still be pushing. They're still fighting all the time, you know. So we just want to make sure that they're adhering to this very carefully. So we move on.
Mr.
Yes?
Chairman, one last thing. I think obviously all I heard I'm agreeing with. We've got an ally in town that has a very strong relationship with the Speaker of the House, Mr. Merrill. And it's oh my God, Helen Hill. Helen Hill has an extremely good relationship. Just to piggyback on what Councilmember Pell was saying about, obviously we have to work with Republicans as well as Democrats as for allies to the process. Helen Hill is steeped in tourism. The people that the essential workers in tourism, number one, tourism is the number one industry in the state of South Carolina. Generates more money than State Ports Authority, generates more money than all the military bases combined. So tourism, followed by State Ports Authority, followed by the federal payroll is the large income producers to the state. And obviously housing for people who work in the tourism industry is essential. So when we talk about our delegation, we talk about our lobbyists, I gotta tell you, Helen, as well as Dwayne Parrish, who's director of PRC, who is from Charleston, and he's been a survivor from a couple of administrations now, gubernatorial. I think he came in with Mark Sanford, you know, there with Governor Haley, and then now Governor McMaster, I'm sorry. So please, let's include some of the allies that's right next door down the street from us in our approach towards affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't know, maybe if a letter can be sent, if we can contact them, if a letter can be sent from Ms. Helen Hill, that might can make this have more strength to it. If you may.
I think it would. And some of her allies in the business community join in with that. The chambers certainly join in with that.
But we can ask them, you know, we can have someone to reach out to them, to ask them if they would write a letter to go along with the resolution that we are doing, and see if that can, you know, we need all the help we can. That's what I'm saying. So if that can be done, we can try those things too. I think anything would help.
I agree with you. So who would be reaching out?
That's what I'm going to find out.
Would it be the mayor?
I think it needs to be the mayor.
I agree.
Yeah. So I'm asking the staff to contact the mayor and let the mayor know what's transpiring here at the community development meeting. Okay. And ask him so far as with these letters that if we can have these letters attached to our resolution going up there, and I think this might play a big part in assisting with the support that we need to have more strength and more teeth to the resolution that we have.
Thank you, Mr.
So I don't know if Ms. Johnson would be doing that, whomever.
Yes, I've taken notes. We'll take care of it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think I need a motion on this one.
It's been first and seconded.
Oh,
ready for the question.
Ready for the question. No, I thought
No.
we voted.
I thought I said.
Well, yeah, we voted already. I think
We did vote.
Yeah, we
Okay.
voted.
Let's vote it again. Let's give it an extra little push.
Councilman Warren Kim on the end. That's what got me.
Okay.
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 Yeah, we already voted.
Okay, we'll move on down to number 3, the resolution for the city of Charleston. Council calling on the state of South Carolina delegation to amend the South Carolina Code of Laws governing and approved uses of accommodation and hospitality tax to include workforce housing as an approved use of such taxes.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we're moving second. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposes?
Nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. We have one nay. We move on down to number 4, IB4, resolution to adopt an affordable housing priority status.
Councilwoman
Policy.
Parker has her hands up.
Policy. Let me put this down here. Councilman Parker?
Yeah, you ran through item 3. I just had some questions.
That's the one we just voted on?
Right.
Okay.
Are we going to have discussion?
No, yeah.
I thought
we-
you voted
Well, I
nay.
called the questions. That's why I called and asked if you had a discussion, but
Yeah, I had my hand up.
okay. Well, it's already been approved, but you can go ahead and ask the question. I'll give you the opportunity.
But a point of order,
It's
Mayor.
okay.
Just a
Yes,
point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman. Gray.
I just want to be clear. So when you were voting nay, Councilman Parker, you were voting nay for item 333, right?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. All right,
Yes, she's voting nay on 3,
all right.
but she wanted to ask the questions also on number 3, correct?
I did. Yeah.
Councilman.
You called the question and there was no discussion. It just went to vote. So it's okay.
No, I mean, if you have a question, I'll permit you to ask the question.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there are a lot, I mean, I can, and I'll explain my vote. I mean, there are, reading the law, I mean, this A tax and H tax, if we're taking it away, there are other things that can be used, this can be used for, as I'm reading. I mean, even street maintenance, I mean, anything that goes towards, tourism related. And some of that could be, street maintenance. So I know Amy's not here again, but
We use accommodation
Yes,
tax.
for that.
okay, well,
dollars
again, so I guess
for-
there's really no question. It's just explaining my vote.
Right.
I feel that there are things that we could use these funds for in the city to better the city that, needs that need to be addressed as well. But
I mean, as chairman of ATAX, just for clarification, and I'm not talking necessarily on the grant size, but we do use ATAX and hospitality money for supporting tourist type activities. But I think where we're going with little 3 is just as streets, safety, et cetera, support tourism without having affordability, okay? Such as your servers, all the folks that worked in the various businesses in the city that support tourism also. So the logic here is just as those other things affect tourism, housing does too. And this is something that we've been fighting for now for years. And for this to get to this point, I'm quite elated, and it's the time for us to really do lobbying and talking to the appropriate people that we know to try to make this happen so that we can increase resources available for affordable housing, which supports the tourism industry.
Thank you for the explanation, Councilman Gregory.
Councilman Saccharin has his hand up.
Saccharin is next. I have him. His hands is up. Councilman Saccharin?
Thank you, Chair. Councilwoman Parker, I respect your vote. I get it. I understand. I just want to give an alternate perspective on this. If you talk to restaurant owners downtown and you ask them some of the challenges they're experiencing, all those things you've mentioned, I hear it all the time. Man, we pay this A-tax, hospitality tax. My streets are bad. No one's picking up the sidewalk. All host a bevy of issues. But what comes to the top of that is I don't have staff to work in my restaurant. So all those other things are very important. I just want to, preface. But if you don't have staff to operate the restaurant, you're no longer a business owner. You are closed. So to me, the housing and staffing issue is the biggest piece that we have to really try to tackle. And you're correct. I mean, those other issues are certainly expressed by business owners that they want that money to be used for. But when you ask restaurant owners, particularly on the peninsula, what's the biggest issue right now? It's staffing. So I just wanted to share that with you. I respect that vote, and I understand that money should be going in other places, but that's a priority for restaurant owners.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else?
Councilmember Appel's hand.
Who's that?
Councilmember Appel.
Oh, okay, Councilman Appel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just be real brief. And just to be clear, this is not intended to divert all of our accommodation
Right.
hospitality tax money to housing. This is just, again, another one of many tools in the toolkit. So the city has flexibility to attack this issue on all fronts, because it is an enormous issue. We've got a comp plan that says we need 10,000 plus units over the next 10 years or so. We need to get going on that, and we're not going to meet that goal on the current track we're on with the current tools that we have. The legislature in South Carolina sets the rules for accommodations and hospitality taxes. They say in Columbia what the money can and can't be used for. Some of the money that's generated from hospitality and tourism here goes to Columbia so that they can spread the money around and redistribute the wealth to poor counties that don't have anything going for them. So a lot of that money that we're generating here goes to the backwaters of South Carolina, for who knows what. So this is just an opportunity to give us some flexibility to meet a very critical challenge. I mean, you can think of affordable housing as infrastructure, as Councilmember Gregory has mentioned, and Councilmember Saccharin has as well. It's a huge problem that is only getting worse in the city. And if you talk to people in the hotel industry and in the restaurant industry, it's a massive problem they're dealing with on the peninsula. And there is a nexus with keeping that economic engine that Councilmember Waring spoke about a minute ago going. So I think that this ought to be done, and hopefully the legislature can give us a little bit more flexibility to spend money as the city sees fit with money that's generated here in the city for us to use. I think it would be very consistent with home rule and not being governed by Columbia, by a bunch of people that have nothing to do with the city of Charleston. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Councilman. That's exactly what I was going to say, and I agree wholeheartedly with you, because we talk a lot about affordable housing, and that's something is very dear to me, because I lived here all my life. I mean, I left here, like I said, went to New York and stayed up there 17 years, but this is my home. I live here, always born and raised here. But you'll find many people, even my kids, and some of you all kids, the kids that you all have, cannot stay here because of affordability. And that's a shame. Why should I have to move somewhere else and go somewhere else because I can't live in the place that I was born and raised? So any money that we can generate from wherever the case may be, we need to do it. And the state governs all this because this is the type, under home rules, this is what it is. So we are asking them now, we need some of this money back. I mean, you spread it all around the state of South Carolina, but we need something to come back here in Charleston that we are generating here, but we need to send some back here so that we can utilize it and try to do the best things we can for housing, for streetscape, or whatever the case may be, that we can do it. Because it's getting pretty bad down here. It's pretty bad. We generating this funds and don't keep it all. And they spread it around other places because they have jurisdiction over it. If we generate it, we should keep it to ourselves, but that's not the way it happened in this state.
Sounds a lot like income redistribution and
right.
Socialism. Little bit of that going on in Columbia.
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. So it's needed, and we just hope for the best. Thank you. Any other questions? So we'll move on. If anyone,
one more.
Councilman Parker, so we can move on.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to that last point, I mean, maybe we should work on a resolution of some sort like this, discussing that. How do we keep our A tax and H tax money?
That's what this is about. That's what this is about.
But this is directly directing it to affordable housing.
No.
It just adds affordable housing as one of many.
to
Yeah.
include.
Is
to
an
include-
eligible expense. That's
Yeah.
all. It's an
Yeah.
eligible activity under a tax. It's not.
Yeah, there's
gonna-
like a long list in the statute.
Right.
We're just asking them to add one more that
That's
just
all.
says workforce housing.
That's
and
it.
not taking anything away either.
But
Right.
Councilmember Parker, to your point, I
But
mean,
what I'm-
that's another issue is that 30% that goes up to Columbia, I believe,
Right.
that gets redistributed. I'd sign off on that resolution.
I would
to
too.
Keep that money
Right.
home. Let's do it.
Let's
Maybe-
do it.
But one step at a time.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It might
Are,
slam the-
are you asking for that to be draft so that it can be reviewed by this body and then submitted to the body of the whole, Councilmember Parker?
Is this the correct committee or would it need to go to ATAX?
No, it could come here and then a tax as well if necessary.
So moved, yeah.
Second,
Okay, so let me get clarification. Do we have to add that first?
oh,
Could that be?
Do we have to
Chairman, it
add?
sounds like
we
you're
have to
just
add it to
directing
this?
staff. If, I mean, it's,
that's what I
don't take a
think.
vote, it's just directing staff to put something on a future agenda.
Exactly.
Okay,
That's all.
okay.
So
we'll-
we don't really need a vote for that.
No, no, we'll
Right.
direct staff.
Correct.
And once it gets to us, Councilmember Parker, we'll
Then
have
we'll-
further discussion and vote it up or down.
Okay, direct staff.
Thanks for that.
Could you
I
repeat that
mean,
again?
the American colonists fought a war about people taking their tax money and
Exactly.
you know, 1776. baby.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so now I'm getting lost myself over here.
We're on item 4.
IV4, resolution to adopt an affordable housing priority status policy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So this is kind of an existing program of work that we've been doing between the planning department and the housing department in a collaborative fashion. We've had one of our senior planners that's worked extensively on kind of creating the program and bringing together some essentially they amount to incentives to help affordable housing projects or projects that have been designated as affordable housing work their way through the city's development process. Of course, acknowledging that our development process has a lot of parts, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of requirements and technical things that need to be observed. But where possible, we are actively working to streamline the process, period, because we want to make it as workable for everyone as possible. But taking it a step further with affordable projects. And so Ms. Stuber is on. She has been coordinating this. Thanks actually to the actions of City Council in approving the budget for this year. We will be bringing on a full-time city staff member who will work on this because this has been Chloe's kind of night job. Her day job is as senior planner. And she's got a couple big projects that she will be working on in the coming year. So it's very tremendous for the city, for the department, for this process that we'll be able to have a full-time staff member actually engage in this as their full-time job later this year when we're able to fill that position. With that, I would like to give Chloe just a few minutes to kind of talk about the work that's been going on in that concierge program and some of the projects that we've been able to help with that. If that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we give her a few minutes. Chloe, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
So the concierge is serving as a single point of contact for affordable housing developers. These can be multifamily developers. This could also be a single property owner who's just looking to create affordable housing on their property. And my role has been to help them navigate our development review process from acquisition stage through planning to the permit center. We've assembled an affordable housing work group, which includes a multidisciplinary team from across boards and divisions and departments to look at how we can streamline these processes. We have fee waivers in place, application fee waivers in the planning department, down the permit center. And we've been working in our systems for our plan case and sort of the software that we use to track all of these applications and records in identifying affordable housing projects in that system, so that can improve communication across departments and divisions. And technical review committee has been sort of at the front of creating different protocols for affordable housing projects that meet criteria and are eligible for priority review. So they have 17-day review periods across the board, which is shorter than a market rate project would receive. They get red flag follow-up meetings, so in between extra TRC meetings to help them troubleshoot problems and avoid having to come back multiple times to TRC. So these are some of the initiatives that have been put into place, and we're looking to expand on those. And, you know, as these advantages increase and become, you know, turn into real cost savings, we just wanted to make sure that we were, you know, having our I's dotted and T's crossed in terms of making sure that we have an official statement of what priority status is, so that we can expand on that program. And we are going to be bringing back an ordinance or ordinances for CD committee to consider in the future. And this is just sort of the first step of establishing priority status as language and direction that we've been taking.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Gregory?
Yes. It sounds as though folks have been listening to council. Because if I recall, Councilman Waring in particular has often talked about making sure that technical assistance, because that's what we're talking about, technical assistance is available to the neophytes. Okay. And in addition, when they go before whoever and they're rejected, what recourse would they have? Many people would have no idea, but with this concierge effort that we're talking about, they just go right back to you guys, and you guys would tell them, well, this is what you have to do, X, Y, Z, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, this is something that I support. It's something that Councilman Waring in particular has been talking about for quite some time. So I think this is long overdue, and I really applaud your efforts here. And, you know, I still think that Chloe is one of the best policy gurus I've ever met. Thank you, Chloe.
You heard it from Councilman Gregory. Hey, anyone else have any questions?
I move for approval.
I don't want to miss anyone. I want to miss anyone before I call.
Councilmember Saccharin has his hand up.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Patrick. I was going to wait till the end, but I feel like today's meeting's all been about affordable housing and what we can do to improve. What I see is like three areas. So one, we spend a lot of time often on the supply side and what we can do to increase the supply. And Chloe, this is very encouraging to hear that you're all thinking about this affordable housing group. I'm not sure if it's called a task force or what it is or what their charge would be, but it sounds to me that this is solely focused on projects that are notated as wishing to be part of that because they are delivering on some sort of affordable housing units, correct?
That's correct. Currently, our criteria to be assigned the designation of priority status is providing 50% or more of the units as affordable, and affordable, you know, as defined by our Department of Housing and Community Development.
And it's important to note that not all those projects are ones that Gianna's team have money in. This program is open to anyone that's doing an affordable housing project that meets the criteria for priority status. So whether you're something that's being funded with any city funds or state funds, or if you're Habitat for Humanity and you're working purely from charitable donations, you will have access to this. You have access, and as we expand, continue to have access to this program.
And this is going to be kicked off when, Chloe and Robert?
So
It already does this.
We're already doing this. But we're hoping to scale it up.
Okay.
And increase the amount of, right now, TRC is really the only committee that has a sort of expedited review type protocol in place. So we're looking to expand on protocols like that across our boards and committees involved in the review process.
So Councilman, with Chloe doing this part-time, that's really made this program to date more reactive. So somebody often has a problem and then they get in the pipeline for this. With the new full-time staff member who that's their responsibility to manage and work the concierge program, they will be more proactive and publishing and making sure that the development community and specifically those that are working in this space know that this is a service that the city offers and that we can provide them the additional guidance. Because I think you hit a nail on the head. Councilman Gregory, the big market players, they have a team that knows the ins and outs of our development process. They have the extra bandwidth to hire that local consultant who's worked through our system for the last 20 years. Affordable housing projects, particularly given the criteria that we have, every cent matters to everybody, but every cent really matters on an affordable housing project. And one less consultant that they have to hire, and the quicker a project can get done, that's a significant savings to them and potentially to the city, more projects that we could potentially do and make our dollar stretch further as well.
Robert, would this help assist them in kind of streamlining some of the process they're going through too?
Yes, sir. And it again, the idea here is that we have some follow-up with them. So again, instead of somebody get going, and I think Councilman Gregory said it right, nail on the head, you leave from a board meeting and you have no idea what your next step is.
Right.
And maybe you spend 2 months trying to call around or what have you. And sadly, that happens. Folks will lose months in their process trying to figure out what their next step is. Chloe already does this again,
around for them, Robert. So I'm
yes.
so glad.
Yes, exactly. So this will be someone who will very proactively be helping essentially kind of case manage those through our development process to help them out.
All righty.
Chair, I didn't even finish my comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Read my comment. But I'm glad we had this discussion because I think it's very helpful to hear in context. So as I understand it, this is geared towards affordable housing projects. My comments really, obviously, supply side, we're trying to increase that. Obviously, the demand side, when we talk about economic empowerment, that's something that we try to focus on. But that's probably a tougher challenge for us on the demand side. The third piece of this that rarely gets discussed, and I think we're kind of nibbling on the edges today, is what a lot of us tend to call the structural, systemic, self-induced things that we do to ourselves that we really don't recognize. I had the awesome opportunity of meeting one of local developer who's building a substantial project here in Charleston, $100 million project. Had an hour-long conversation with him yesterday and had a really honest conversation and asked him from nuts to bolts, from when the project started to where it is today, to the next year or two when the project completes, what his experience was like. And I will say that they're building in Nashville, they're building in Austin, they're building in Charlotte, they're building in Atlanta, and he flat out said that this has been the biggest challenge of his professional career is to build this project here in Charleston. So I delved deeper and wanted to know more. And these comments all come Chloe and Robert, how particularly interested in it I am in BAR. I did not pitch this. I did not throw this out. I didn't throw him a softball. He simply told me that the BAR process has been detrimental to the financial impact of this project. And I said, so how much? What are we talking about? He said, ballpark about $20 million to this project. And I said, explain to me, what does that mean? He said, over the course of 2 years, they've been going back and forth with BAR and design and aesthetics. And finally, they got to a place where they both agreed on the design. But BAR's insistence on some design things in their interpretation, he basically said that BAR thought that they were absolutely right. And his interpretation was there's a lot of right ways to get to things. So they eventually agreed on a design, but that back and forth through COVID and prices of materials increasing have increased his project by about $20 million. So when we talk about affordable housing for our city, I often ask the question, and I know fellow council members like Councilman Appel and council members Bowden and Brady, and I know Councilman Gregory, and I've had this discussion. What are we doing to ourselves? When I say self-induced, that's creating this system. So this is a low-cost fix to basically deregulate, remove some of the red tape, and focus on what we need to focus on. To me, this is an issue that goes across both parties, both political ideologies. We are here to make it easier for developers to develop in a responsible, aesthetically pleasing, preservation-minded way. But where I see it now, just like north of Line Street, is the pendulum has swung so far over that it's become a disincentive for developers to come here to build affordable housing. So if we had asked this developer to build affordable housing and built that into the pro forma, the $20 million, we're talking about $20 million today coming from the state. That's a $20 million project that he had to spend extra. That's a lot of affordable housing units. So I'm just letting you all know that this is something that I'm going to talk about more in my last year on council. I'm going to rally some of my council members to have a deeper discussion. And if we need to, I do feel like we need to deep dive and audit the process of BAR throughout the city. And I know it's not popular with the preservation groups, but we have to get the developers, we have to get homeowners and residents, and we have to get some preservation groups to the table to talk about the process. Because to me, as I see it today, it is way too far over on the pendulum. When a developer that is a reputable developer that does projects in Austin, in Charlotte, and Atlanta, and places all over the country tells me this is the worst city to work in. I know we all can say, well, find someplace else to go. But we have to listen to them. I think it's important for us to listen to their concerns and realize that it does have a financial impact. And that financial impact has a direct result on the amount of affordable housing stock that we have in our city. So some of this is self-induced. And I'm not asking for any answers today, but I want to let you all know that this is going to be something I'm going to be pushing with HARC. And this is going to be something that I'm going to be talking about fellow council members with over the next year.
So you're talking about relaxing the BAR standards or something? I'm not sure.
I don't know, Dudley, the answer, but I do know that we got to get developers to the table and understand what the nuances are. When the developer and someone, to your point earlier, Robert, you'd said that these folks can go out and hire the best and the brightest. This guy was very well adept. He's not from Charleston. He's a New York engineer, very well adept, and does these projects all over the country. I think he's well respected here. Basically, he's been on retainer for all this time and said that it has cost them at least $20 million in additional costs. Granted, there was COVID and some of the inflation costs were built into that. So Dudley, to answer your question, I don't know if that's relaxing standards. I don't know if that's looking at this from, and you know how I am from a process standpoint. What does the process look like from the time an application comes in to the time it gets approved, and have a flow chart? Because what I'm hearing from a lot of folks is there's a lot of back and forth. Some of it's subjective, some of it is aesthetics, some of it is they finally get to the place, but it takes 6 months. And then we've got once a month meetings, or twice a month meetings. So there's a delay that's already built into the system that's creating a disincentive for these developers. And I'm not trying to put money into the pockets of developers. What I am saying is that delta, that $20 million cost, that's a hell of a lot of money that could be spent on affordable housing.
Would it take Bennett 12 years to do the Bennett Hotel? So I would be the first to say that if there's something that could be done to streamline the process, I agree with you. But it took him what, 12 years?
10, I think it's 10.
That was a lot of litigation delay.
Yeah.
10 years going to Supreme Court.
10 years.
Yes.
But who filed the case? That's
Right.
for another topic.
Yes.
Yep. That's right.
Councilmember Parker and then Councilmember Appel have their hands up.
Okay. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So again, this is sort of getting off the affordable housing line a little bit, but with those layers, exactly like you're talking about, Councilman Saccharin, I've heard the same thing. I've had discussions with staff, but also city projects. I mean, so a lot of our city projects have to go through these processes. I mean, right now, I'm looking at a community-oriented project that still has to go through this lengthy process, and it's already, you know, their projected date was fall. You know, there are some procurement things, but again, these items still have to go through, you know, the same process as a lot of these, you know, you're talking 100 million. I mean, these projects are small projects under $30,000. I'm talking about, so when we're talking about that, I think city projects as well need to be sort of lumped into that, you know?
Councilmember Pale was next.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and Councilmember Parker, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, not only are our rules and processes contributing to the challenges on affordable housing, it's contributing to the challenges of our own projects to advance affordable housing and things of that nature. So it's a double whammy there. And Jason, I just can't, I mean, I literally want to like applaud what you just said. I mean, it was just so right on the money. And, you know, for all the wonderful things that we're doing for affordable housing, many of the things that we've talked about today on this committee agenda, we are never going to meet our goals as a city alone with these leveraged financial deals and tax credits and things that they're all important. They're all great. I'm not trying to throw shade on them, but until we can truly activate the private sector to make affordable housing profitable, we're not going to get the units that we need to solve our problems and truly make progress on this issue. And so it does demand for us to take a very hard, critical examination of how we operate in the city. And look, I mean, aesthetics and historic preservation, that is what has made Charleston the wonderful, amazing city that it is. So let's not make this debate, which I think we really need to have, about a fight between historic preservation and aesthetics and housing. It doesn't have to be a conflict. There are many different ways that we can ensure that anything that's built in this city, particularly on the peninsula, is first class when it comes to appearance and materials and things of that nature. There's a lot of different techniques that are out there to reach that same point. Currently, we have a model that's a very old model. It's a model that has its origins in the 30s. I mean, we're the first city in the country to have a BAR. We invented it here in the city of Charleston. I learned, by the way, recently that our BAR didn't actually have regulatory teeth until the 60s. So for like the first 30 years of the BAR, it was sort of just an informal advisory board. I guess it operated sort of on public shaming and things of that nature. It didn't have sort of regulatory teeth and permits and things of that nature. I think that's fascinating, historic relic on its own. But, you know, there's various different types of zoning techniques out there. And these are things we can explore during our zoning rewrite. So, for example, some jurisdictions around the country, including some very upscale, high-end places around the world, have what are called form-based codes, which basically build architectural scale, massing, materials, things of that nature into the zoning. So it's much more objective from a developer's perspective as to what the expectations are. It's not just, let's spend $500,000 drawing up plans, roll into a meeting with the BAR and see what, several very well-meaning, awesome architects on the BAR have to say about it. I mean, it's just subjective. And this is the back and forth process that Jason was talking about. And this is what we have to recognize. It has a cost. It has a drag, our current system, right? We need to look at ways that we can achieve the historic preservation goals, the aesthetic goals, things of that nature, in just a more upfront, clear, transparent, frictionless manner. It'll reduce costs. It'll help the supply side of the housing affordability problem. And it'll, I think, maybe even, I hope it will create better looking, more predictable buildings, because it won't just be sort of this ad hoc process that we essentially have currently. So everything we've talked about on this agenda today is important, it's valuable, it's moving the ball forward. But what Jason is talking about right now and others have talked about on council along these lines, this is like the heart of the matter right here. And that's a tough, complicated, challenging discussion that we're going to have amongst ourselves, our constituents, stakeholder groups, things of that nature. But it doesn't have to be a conflict, a battle between historic preservation and affordable housing. I think these things can live together in harmony. We just have to be open-minded about reevaluating the way we do things around here, which is, it's a little scary, but it's also important, and we got to be up for the task to do it.
Thank you very much. Councilman Waring?
I wanted to piggyback on what Ms. Parker and Councilman Appel and everybody else had to say. I've actually talked to Capital Projects about having a code called, let's call it 1670. So when it's a city project, and when 1670 is on this particular project, it gets on an expedited trail. Edwin Mose, a lot of you all know him, oversaw the Gilliard project, and now has done a wonderful job overseeing the IM construction project. Just yesterday on a construction meeting about the IM, said, Councilman Waring, the vein of my job is getting projects approved and getting a certificate of occupancy for the city. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, here, our top, I would say, engineer overseeing projects for the city. Now, he's going to be on that bike pedestrian bridge once the IM is finished. His biggest headache is getting a permit to start and getting a certificate to occupy. And it's because of the red tape. So I think if maybe this action step, or maybe we can have a sit down with some of the folk in Capital Projects, about if it's expedited, what does that mean? But I think that code 1670 to let everybody in the planning department, the stormwater department, the building inspection department, hey, this is a city project. When we slow it up, we increase costs to everybody in the city, all the taxpayers. And I wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Summerfield. You all have heard me talk about a block of property, a big block from on Sam Rittenberg to Savannah that was in the design corridor board auspices. Mr. Palacios was able to, he had a building that was built in 1950. Our process, I'm gonna say, slowed it up for over a year. Mr. Somerville injected himself, and he and his team, Mr. Meeks and all. Anyway, the board voted to allow him to tear a house down that is no longer in a residential area, similar to your situation on Ms. Parker on James Island 6 months or so back, to allow development to go forward. It's probably going to be another hotel that's going to be built there, but in an area that's designed to handle it. But anyway, that's red tape, that tape thing. We have this talk from time to time, but somehow we got to get the action steps to the point to where we reduce that red tape. And the willingness is here to do it. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mr. Summerfield. He had talked about offering a concierge service. It's something apparently they must have had out in Las Vegas area. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mr. Summerfield, but when clients need things done and maybe calls aren't returned the way we would like, the concierge service would step in, but he knows more about that. But Mr. Summerfield, not necessarily today, but I look forward to you bringing that soon to council, whatever we can do to help out with offering that type service to increase efficiencies.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Anyone else have any questions or concerns? We can move on to item 5, and it's asked for
Mr. Chairman,
motion.
I'm not sure if that one got a vote.
It did.
No, not yet. That's from asking now before.
Oh,
we
okay.
go on
I
to the vote.
apologize.
That's all right. If we can go on to the vote, if I get a motion.
Move for approval on item 4.
No, number 5.
Item 5?
Yeah, I think we already did 4.
No, we didn't.
That's
Did
the
No,
one
we
we've been
didn't do
discussing.
4 yet. Yeah, we haven't
haven't
voted on
done-
4 yet.
We haven't voted on 4.
Oh, I've been writing things down so much. I
Okay.
don't know. Okay,
Move
move
for-
for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Move in
Perfect.
second, all 3 foot by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Moving on to number 5. Now, this is our resolution supporting inclusionary zoning. I think that's what I thought it was on that. I don't know.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
You want, I'll start, Robert.
Okay.
Several years ago, we began working with our local nonprofits and Helen Hill's organization, a number of organizations we met with around inclusionary zoning, literally casting it forward as enabling legislation to support inclusionary zoning across our state. Enabling legislation would give local jurisdictions the ability to choose what percentage of affordable housing they would want to regulate as part of this process. And so Senator Kempson has been a long champion of that the many years ago that we started working on this, and has since reintroduced this bill. Again, the strategy being to increase the number and the amount of affordable housing, not only in the city of Charleston, but in the state of South Carolina, because literally this issue is not likened to us only. And so we are seeking support from City Committee of City Council and Council to, in fact, support this such that we can advise the legislative body of the need and our support behind this legislation. And I know Robert had thoughts on this as well and its impact from the planning standpoint.
Thank you, Gianna. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So yeah, so again, we've talked a lot today about tools, and this is a tool. As Gianna mentioned, the legislation that's up at the legislature is enabling legislation, so it doesn't require you to do anything. It just creates a tool that can be in our toolbox. So Charleston can use it and our neighboring jurisdictions don't have to. They could make their own decisions about this option. An important component of this legislation as compared to what you may hear about when you hear inclusionary zoning in other states in the union, it requires incentives. So it's not a pure mandate. So if as a jurisdiction we were to choose, if this enabling legislation were to be passed and the city of Charleston were to choose to utilize this tool within our zoning code, we would be required to have incentives to create some offset, if you would, for the requirement. So it's not, it doesn't allow us to be a straight mandate. And just like our MU workforce housing zoning incentive thing, you can also do fee in lieu. So again, the legislation requires the ability to do fee in lieu if the community, a particular developer is building, for whatever reason, just doesn't work to have those units on site or as a part of that development. So this is one of the most flexible inclusionary zoning legislations I've seen in comparison, and I've compared a lot because I worked with the Nevada legislature on a similar question there that was not able to get passed there either. But this is just an important tool. I'm hopeful y'all can support this. I think as we continue to talk about providing options for folks in terms of getting our affordable housing strategy done, that this could be a big one. And as Gianna mentioned, this is for the entire state. It's not just for the city of Charleston. So there'll be other communities in the state that I think will take advantage of this if the legislature sees fit to pass it.
Question?
Any questions?
I have to run.
Yeah,
I apologize. I have to run.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Councilman Gregory?
Yeah, I had a question. Something again that we've been talking about for quite some time, and that's, would this give us the ability to do a housing linkage, be it fee in lieu of or otherwise, and attach that housing linkage to all developments in the city?
So,
Be it office, be it whatever, because whatever, their folks are going to need a place to stay.
Right. I think there's some folks from legal on here, but the way I have read this legislation, it doesn't allow linkage fees per se, but it would allow us to have an inclusionary requirement. So if you build an office project, again, our zoning is fairly flexible and allows for a residential component in our office districts and other things. So we could require an affordable housing component to any zoning district under this. And then the folks, instead of actually building a housing component, they could do a fee in lieu. So it wouldn't be a linkage fee per se, but
call
it
it
could create
call it what you want.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, the effect is the same for me. And it sounds as though we're getting closer to being able to do that, Gianna.
Yes, it's been out there for a while, so this may be the year that
Yes,
we
it
can get it
is.
passed. We had a lot of pushback, but again, it offers these incentives. It offers the opportunity for local jurisdictions to choose what amount of affordable housing they will require developers to build under inclusionary zoning, be it 25%, 15%. So it gives that flexibility, but it does incent you to bring the affordable housing forward.
And Councilmember Pell,
Okay.
can we connect this somehow with 236?
Let's go get a drink and talk about that. I don't.
Okay. All
Maybe
right.
we'll talk about some of those legal theories offline.
Okay,
Good,
sounds
good
good.
enough.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, we're going to do some things. This is the year what we call the year of victory. A lot of
Yes.
things going to be happening, and we will be victorious in a lot of things that we're going to do this year.
Speak it.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm in favor of this one, but I got to jump. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Move for approval.
second.
It's moving second. All vote by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. And that concludes the agenda that we have, unless someone else have anything else to bring before the committee before we decide.
I promise I'll be brief, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, famous last words.
Got another meeting.
I just want to thank my colleagues and our staff for putting together an agenda like this. I mean, this really is a clear statement that the city of Charleston is serious about confronting this challenge. I got to tell you, there's not that many city councils around the country that would be willing to have such an open and frank discussion about this, because the reality of it is this is not good politics a lot of places.
No.
And that's why this has not been talked about for so long over the years. And I think it shows a commitment and leadership amongst all of my colleagues and our staff and the mayor to continue to not just talk about affordable housing, but to actually be about it. And that's I just didn't want that to go unnoticed. What we just did today is not normal.
No.
In Mount Pleasant doesn't do this. Okay, there's not and I'm not trying to pick on them, but this is rare what we're doing here today. And I just want to commend my colleagues for that.
We're setting a precedent.
Yep.
Great meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Like I say, this is a year of
I
victory.
echo
So starting here,
Councilman
it can
Appel's
move on to other
comments.
places. It can move to other jurisdictions once they see us doing some things. It's
Okay.
going to be a ripple effect.
That's right.
Anything else to bring before the committee?
No,
Before we-
move for adjournment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you
Good
all.
meeting, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.